I'll join Paul. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
In the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Thank you for showing up. Does everyone in this room know what a benediction is? Show of hands, who doesn't know what a benediction is? Oh, so I wasn't the only one. Show of hands, those of you who were asked to give a benediction this week and didn't know what it was. This guy. Yeah. Those of you who know what a benediction is, that's pretty funny. Those of you who don't, it's, I guess, only sort of funny. But yes, so this week I do a lot with St. Paul's Cathedral, a lot of interfaith work. We've been pretty active, well, for 18 years in the LGBTQ plus community, but especially with St. Paul's, light up the cathedral and their Pride Week the last 7 years. And so without going into all of that, a few months back, Dharma Bum Temple received an award for, it's called the Light of Pride Award, given to a faith-based community that exhibits and displays tremendous support for the LGBTQ community. And so at that event, Maggie received the award, one of which is up here, and gave a speech, and then I gave the keynote that night, and there were a lot of people there. So apparently somebody there thought I was decent enough to speak at other interfaith events and asked me this week to come to do the benediction at St. Paul's Conference Center, PACE, which is for the elder care folks. And so this was their holiday interfaith breakfast. And I got invited about 4 months ago, but had no idea what a benediction was and didn't decide to Google it until, let's see, when was what day was I there? What day do you lead in the morning? Thursday. So I was there Thursday morning, and I think Wednesday I Googled benediction because I realized I had to give one, and I had no idea what they were. And so I'm Googling benediction, and I'm reading. I'm like, I'm not saying any of that. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't apply. That doesn't work. I don't believe in any of this. But, 24 hours from now, actually probably 8 hours from now, I need to give a benediction. So what I settled on was, other than my opening joke, which was something to the effect of, I warned them before after they asked a Jewish Buddhist to give a benediction. That's how I kind of opened. There are a few hundred people there, and I love talking in front of people, in case you haven't figured that out by now. And so then I opened with it. I'm not going to talk the whole thing. They gave me 4 minutes, which was really beautiful. But I opened with saying that every day for me as a practitioner, I have my prayers where I pray to all Buddhas, all Bodhisattvas, all time, all space, and all directions. May they hear my cries. And so that's how I open every day throughout the day. I do that quite a bit. So I shared that. And I said, but what does that even mean? Right? Because we're praying to whoever you pray to, which whoever you pray to, keep that, believe in it, that's beautiful. But I'm coming from a Buddhist perspective, and I'm praying to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of all time and all space and all directions to hear my cries. What does that even mean? And you should have seen the look on, this is the Dharma Bum Temple, so you're not as shocked, but all of a sudden I'm sitting here in this St. Paul's space, And you could just hear a pin drop. And so I went in to talk about what that means for me as a practitioner, and I used, many of you have heard me talk about many times, the Manjushri Bodhisattva over here, and the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva over here, and the Kuan Yin Bodhisattva behind me. And I followed up by saying, what does that even mean? By saying the Buddha died 2,500 years ago, and he can't help me. He's not going to come here and save me, and fix me, and heal me. He's gone. That also went over pretty well. But I got to be me, And so I went into that and I said, but what it means to me is, how do I take the lessons that the Buddha, and I touched briefly on the fact that he wasn't a god, he was just a human. And I said, and he died, so he can't save me, fix me, heal me. But what can I do as a practitioner? I can look at the body of teachings that he left me. And then I went into the 3 bodhisattvas as examples and talked about the generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom, compassion, all those things, we talk about here constantly. Oh, yeah, is that good? So, I thought it went over pretty well. Feedback after. Nobody really comes up to you and tells you they don't like what you said. But there were enough people who came up to me afterwards that, and again, I don't do it for the likes or pats on the backs, but it was really beautiful to hear the feedback from some of these folks who had never heard anything like that before. And those of you who absolutely hated it, I don't know, maybe they don't go next year, who knows. It was a really beautiful experience to kind of introduce, and I'll kind of close with this before we do meditation, which again, many of you have heard me talk about a lot, that the Buddha said himself when people asked him if they should believe in gods and goddesses, right? As a Hindu, they had beliefs in gods and goddesses. So the people were asking him, should I believe in them? And he said, that's up to you. I'm just a human. I cannot tell you to believe in gods and goddesses or not. If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. That is completely up to you. And that's the message, we've been sharing here for 18 years, which is keep your beliefs. If you have them, whatever they are, they're beautiful. Right? The people in this room, if this is your first time here, the people in this room are not Buddhist. They're Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Jewish, Mormon, pagan, lack thereof, and my apologies to any religions I didn't name. If I left one off, please let me know. But that's what's in this room. But the question is, what do we do? Whoever we pray to, we still have to do stuff. Whoever we look to save us and fix us and heal us, we still have to do stuff. Right? If I want world peace, if I want neighbors to get along, if I want family to get along, the prayers are wonderful. Keep them. What are you going to do? If you pray for peace and you treat people like crap, how's that work out? Right? So, and what I closed with was, because I kept seeing in these benedictions, for those who are familiar with them, I call upon, right? It was always, is that right? Does that make sense? I mean, I Googled it for like 5 minutes. Who knows benedictions here? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're calling upon someone, right? To like bless them and And so I called upon all of us in the room. And I said, and I challenge everybody in this room. I call upon all of us, all these religious faith leaders and people in this room, to practice these things. Because it's on us to create the change that we want. So that was my message. And I just felt like, mainly for Wayne, because he wanted to know how it went, I didn't record it. But I just felt like sharing that. It was a really beautiful experience for me. And as always, I'm honored everything St. Paul's does, and the way they bring together interfaith folks, leaders and communities is incredible. For any of you who know Reverend Penny Bridges, very Reverend Penny Bridges, she's such a wonderful leader in this community. And people that I really look up to and admire. So anyways, it went okay. Good. All right, so we'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and this practice of learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often help slide in the front third, pushing the stomach forward. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, just trying to sit comfortably, relaxing the shoulders if possible. Hands are on the knees or lap, whatever works for you. And to those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, Recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where is your mind? Lost in thought? Return to breath. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, Taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. Most important, the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy, not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It's direct perception into the present moment and learning to be with life as it arises. Life is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, challenges. That's what we get. That's never going to change. What we're learning is to respond to those things in a kinder, gentler, more peaceful way. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. And that's it. That's the practice. It doesn't change. It doesn't get more complicated. It doesn't get more difficult. It's really simple. The challenge is, can we practice it? And that's why Buddhism is called a practice. It's a practice and a way of life. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, which is why we spend so much of our time hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. So much time focused on everybody else and everything else, and everything that's wrong, and everything we disagree with. So much anger you cultivate within yourself. This practice is setting that down for a moment and focusing on what you do have control over, which are your thoughts, your words, and your actions. That's what will make your heart feel better. And then with that, you go create change in the world that you want to see. But you have to do it. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I always really prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And to those joining virtually, again, welcome. Feel free to say hello. If you have any questions, put them on the chat box. I'll do my best to respond. So we'll use the rest of our brief time for questions, meditation, Buddhist practice. Thanks, Jody. Nice to see you. Well, actually, I don't see you at all, but it's nice to know you're here. We miss you as well.
This is the first time I've tried repeating a word to myself while I'm doing this. I did kind of notice it helped calm me down a bit more.
Nice.
I've heard that you're supposed to have that given to you and you're not really supposed to share it with anyone. Is that accurate, and what is the logic behind that?
Don't pay a lot of money for that word. I'm going to give you a word for free. Or can you tell me what word you used, or do you have to kill me afterwards?
Sassafras.
Say again?
Sassafras.
Sassafras.
Ooh.
Keep that word.
Okay.
You don't need another word. That's as ridiculous and random as anything. And did it help you?
Yeah, it did. I noticed it.
So do you need to go pay somebody $2,000 to give you the word purple?
I didn't mean you.
No. I know you didn't mean it. I mean it.
Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
100%. I've been around this stuff a long time. And let me back up. Even in the way you asked the question, right? Your question was, are you supposed to?
Yeah.
I would be very careful asking that question, because somebody is going to say to you, yes, you are supposed to, or no, you aren't supposed to. Who are they? Who am I? The Buddha said literally, do not believe this because I'm saying it. Those are his words. So if the Buddha himself, where everybody's pulling these teachings from, said, don't believe this just because I'm saying it, if he said that, why would you believe what anybody said? He said, try it, meaning what he said, and put it into practice. And if it works for you, then beautiful, keep it. If it doesn't, abandon it. But there's a lot of kind of offshoots of Buddhist-y stuff out there. And, you go back to the 60s and 70s and transcendental meditation, TM, and, the Beatles and all kinds of cool, fun stuff that included lots of drugs and lots of stuff. And, they'll tell you, yeah, spend a lot of money. We'll give you a secret word. Has to be given to you. Sassafras. I approve. Yeah. Don't get wrapped up in what people say. Take everything I just said and completely throw it out the window and try it. Because what if somebody else gives you another word? And all of a sudden you're like, well, that word didn't work as much as sassafras does. But you're following this belief system that says this person needed to give it to you. So you're actually giving power to that story versus the actual practice. My master always said it doesn't matter if you recite the name Jesus Christ, Namo Amitofu, which is the Buddha's name, or Coca-Cola. He said it didn't matter. That was his view on it. To me, that makes sense. You know? Yeah. What else? Yeah. Go ahead, hang on. Go ahead in the back. Yeah.
I might regret asking you this. But I love when you say everything's beautiful exactly as it is, but you also always say, no one else to be. What do you mean by that?
So the question is, at the end of meditation or throughout the meditation, yes, and I say the same things. Every so often I tweak it a little bit based on maybe a comment or something somebody said that made me realize I needed to adjust it. But I've been saying in essence that same thing for probably 15 years. And so I always say everything beautiful as it is. And then that's what you're saying. And then the question is the part about nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. And so what you're asking me is, what do I mean when I say no one else to be? Do you like yourself? Yeah, that didn't sound that confident. Did anyone else hear the struggle for that to come out? You know? Do you ever get mad at yourself? Do you ever get disappointed in yourself? Do you ever get sad with yourself? Do you ever get happy with yourself, joyful with yourself, right? You're just you. No one else to be, to me, means I can't be anyone else. But most people spend their entire lives wanting to be someone else, something else, somewhere else. Nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. What that means to me personally, which I think is really what your question is coming at, is in this moment, I'll just talk about all three. In this moment, there is nothing else for me to be doing but sitting here, shutting up, and breathing. And throughout my life, if everything I'm doing, everything, in that moment, I can say there's nothing else for me to do, then I can be with that moment. But you ever done one thing and wished you were doing something else? Right? Most people do that like 100 times a day because we don't appreciate what we're actually doing. But if I can begin to train myself that in this moment, there's nothing else for me to do but sit and breathe. So then when I'm doing something later, I can say there's nothing else for me to do but this. And then a moment after that, whatever I'm doing, there's nothing else to do. You ever have things in your life you don't like doing? You don't enjoy doing? Well, in that moment, there's nothing else to do. So it's bringing that idea of nothing else to do into every area of our life. Nowhere else to go. Kind of very similar to the first one, but forget about things we're doing and thinking about places. You ever find yourself in a place, whether it's a place in your life, a city you're in, whatever dynamic you're in with people and relationships, things like that, and you're often thinking, well, if I was just somewhere else, you know that expression, the grass is always greener. If I was just somewhere else, everything would be great. Well, then you spend your life jumping from place to place to place. Once I get here in my life, once I get there, everything's going to be fine. Well, most people say that their entire life and then they die. So, nowhere else to go. Like, this is where I am. I'm right here, sitting, San Diego, Dharma Bum Temple. There's nowhere else for me to go. Everything in my existence is this moment right here, right now, in this place. So appreciate it, right? And no one else to be. I kind of started talking about that, but that really comes from this idea that, you know, for me growing up, I didn't like who I was. I wasn't a nice person. I was mean. I bullied people. I was terrible for 20 years of my life. And that's not just like me being modest. Like, I was an asshole. I picked on people. I spit on people. I beat people up. I was a bully. I was a terrible person. I'm not, this is true. It's, yeah, I mean, I had to
I
learn.
read the Southwest magazine, so I know.
Say again?
I read the Southwest magazine.
Oh, you read the magazine, so
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
it's
so I know.
true. Thank you for confirming.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. So I had to say to myself, that's who I am. There's no one else for me to be but the person that I am. And then I can work on being kinder and gentler, but I still have to be me. Different versions of me, different expressions of me, different practices that come from me and come into the world. But I'm still me. There's no one else to be. I can't ignore all that stuff that I was. I can't say, well, that's not me. People say, that's not you anymore. No, I'm just, first of all, if you get into Buddhist teachings, there is no me anyways. But so it doesn't really matter how I identify from that regard, because the self is this empty thing that's always changing. But if you break that down and experience, that was me. People are like, well, that's not you anymore. Well, that was never me, but that's what I did. And this is what I do now. So I have to learn to appreciate and laugh and enjoy each moment and look back at things I did in the past and say, I can't change that person, right? You, I'm sure, made a few mistakes in your life, right? Just one, maybe, two. You can't change those things. No matter how much you wish, no matter how much I wish that I didn't harm people, that I didn't pick on people, that I didn't tease people, that I didn't make fun of people, no matter how much pain I brought into people's lives and wished I hadn't done that, I can't change that. So I can't just say, well, that's not me. No, that was me. I did all of that, and I have to own that and be okay with it and make peace with it, because that's me. That's the same me that's sitting here right now. That's what I mean. Yeah. No one else to be. Learn from it. What else? Go ahead, sorry. Oh yeah, go ahead.
But do you think with everything you did in the past helped you to become the person you are today?
Well, so the question was, do I think everything I did in the past helped me become the person I am today? The only thing that doesn't resonate, and I know what you mean by that, like, I wouldn't say that it helped me, because I don't want to look at what I did in the past. I think too often people, and this is for me personally, and I don't ever want to do this, I think too often people say, well, I'm glad I did all that because it helped me to be who I am today. No, I'm not glad I did any of that. So that's why I want to be careful in saying, like, yes, that person helped me. That's very selfish of me. And I don't think this is the nature that you intended the question, but I just want to talk about this anyways because it's important. Who I was in the past created a condition. In Buddhism, we call causes and conditions. It created the condition where I had to wake up and not be that way anymore. So it created how I am today. But none of that stuff was good. So I'm not like celebrating like, yay, I treated people like shit and now look how nice I am. No, because that's completely dismissing all the people that I, was cruel to. So the past experiences created who I am today. Yes, just like everyone's past experiences created who you are today. Every single moment of your life led you to be sitting here right now. And maybe we can say, I'm glad I'm sitting here right now. But we've gone through a lot of, stuff to get there. So, yeah, I wouldn't ever celebrate the journey. But I'm also not going to hate myself for the journey either. That was very important too. I had to learn to look at it and say, hey, I can't hate myself because that was part of the problem to begin with. And if I just hate myself for everything I've done in the past, then that's not helpful. Yeah, go ahead, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm just following up to the question about the word.
Yeah.
I've done different practices, some worked, some things I didn't understand, and they were helpful.
Yeah.
But when I got into Buddhism, I kind of liked it because I never heard anything about Buddhists saying to say where it was more quietness. So if you could touch on that and the differences. And
yeah. I mean, I think that, with meditation in general, it's, you'll hear so many people share different practices in different ways. And, there's the things that Buddha taught around meditation. There's things that people for 2,500 years have taught around meditation and longer, really. I mean, the Buddha didn't invent meditation, But I still come back to whatever works for you, I think is most important. And if silence is, for me, the Zen practice of silence, if that works for you, that's beautiful. Silence very often for people is torture. I've worked for 25 years with people with tremendous trauma, PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, etc. Combat veterans coming back, kids who've been abused. I mean, tremendous trauma. And silence is hell. So often guided meditations, visualizations, using words, things like that, are things to focus on so we're not left in silence. I always encourage people as a balance to say, hey, if you are dealing with so much stuff that you can't be in silence, then you definitely need to learn to be in silence. And that's not easy, it's not fun, but if you can do it for 5 seconds, then 5 seconds. Yeah.
Just to clarify, I'm not silent most of the time I'm sitting, and my mind is racing.
Yeah.
It's not like I actually got my right to just be silent.
Oh yeah, I know. I kind of wasn't even answering your question. I was just rambling. Yeah.
I don't have that right.
Yeah. No, I got. Yeah, I know. I got you. But that your intention is to try to just get quiet and pay attention to all the madness. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Thanks. The hand I see. Yeah. Oh, there. I just saw a hand. Yeah. Go ahead.
That no one else to be, I understand, like, in the moment, right? We are who we are, what is.
Yeah.
But how do you, like, reconcile that with, like, the empowerment or the accountability or the responsibility to heal, grow, and change?
Oh, yeah.
How does Buddhism look at that?
No, 100%. I mean, that's the whole idea is that, so Buddhist teachings around craving and desire, right? Buddha taught that the root cause of suffering is craving and desire, that we're constantly looking for things to be different from how they are. We crave more people, places, and things. We desire more people and places and things, and we're just not happy with the way things are. So the Buddha taught also that there's healthy cravings and desires, which is really the root of your question, I think. The craving and desire to suffer less, which is what this practice is about. And when we suffer less, have you ever suffered in the past? Right? And when you suffer, how do you then tend to make other people feel when you're suffering? You bring them down. So when you make yourself less suffering and kinder and gentler, then how do you make other people? Raise them up, right? Using that metaphor or example. So same idea with Buddhist teachings is that obviously who I am, who we are in that moment, that there is no one else to be, but that doesn't mean we abandon the practice of working on generosity, compassion, wisdom. It doesn't mean we abandon the practice of the 6 Paramitas, generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom, loving kindness, all these kind of buzzwords of Buddhism. You're working on that each moment. But in that moment, there was no one else to be in this moment other than the person who was working on being kinder and gentler. And in every moment, I can work on being more kind and more gentle towards myself and others. So it's definitely not just kind of throwing the arms up in the air and throwing the towel in and saying, well, this is me, deal with it. No. If you treat people like crap, you should change. But in that moment, you're treating people like crap. And learn to love the person who's treating like crap, and at the same time, work on not treating people that way. So in this moment, I am someone who's working on being kinder and gentler, et cetera, et cetera. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And then just my second question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you recommend like a good book that's like an overview if someone's totally new to understanding Buddhism?
Yeah, I would say, so downstairs, Buddha for You, if you close your eyes and grab any book on that table, it'll
writing it down.
Yeah, it'll do the trick. But I think when you pick up any sort of it depends on how you look at it. There's also so you can go to a website called Access to Insight. That has what's called the Pali Canon, the original teachings of the Buddha. But to be frank, most people don't. Where did that expression even come from? To be frank. In this moment, I am someone who is pondering, where did the expression "to be frank" come from? Who is Frank?
Who's this Frank guy?
Nobody knows. Really? Someone get back to me on that, please. But to be honest, the Pali Canon, Access to Insight, most people read it and they're like, I don't want to read this. Those are the teachings of the Buddha, and then you get into Pema Chodron and Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh's and Suzuki Roshi's, and all they're doing is taking pieces of the Buddhist teachings and making them kind of come to life. But you could literally you could spend the next 5 years reading Access to Insight, the sutras, the teachings, which is known as the Pali Canon, online. But like I said, I refer that to people always, and they're like, no, I need somebody to kind of bring it to life. Yeah. Yeah.
What exactly does like Zen mean? I've heard it used in the context of gardens and I just don't really know exactly what it means.
Yeah. So the question is, what does the word Zen actually mean? You've heard it in use of gardens and things like that. Zen is one of the most misunderstood words in this culture, right? Although I remember when I was a kid, I used to use it in Scrabble, and it was worth a lot of points. Especially if you got the Z on like a triple word or triple letter or something. If you had a triple letter and a triple word, you were good. But the word Zen literally translates to meditation. Now, in Chinese, they call it Chan. Zen is it's a Japanese word. And it comes from jhana, which means knowledge or gnosis. And so the word Zen is really the experience. So for me, it's most commonly translated as meditation. That's why when you hear people say like Zen meditation, they're really saying meditation, meditation. Just like I just found out, I didn't realize chai was actually tea. So chai tea is TT, right? For those of you who didn't know, now you know. Maybe I'm the only one. But some of the interpretations you'll hear of Zen that are really, there's Zen cereal now, right? Zen gardens. When people use the word Zen in Western culture, what they're typically describing is something peaceful and calm and gentle and pleasant. That's not what Zen is. That's our misunderstanding of how we use the word Zen. Because, especially in Western culture, right? You go to, every nail salon, like, oh, it's so Zen in here, right? So people use the word Zen to describe a peaceful thing. But Zen is an experience of the present moment. And that's what meditation actually is. Meditation is not an escape. Meditation is not, have you ever sat quietly for 5 minutes and been with yourself? How peaceful is that? Not very. Thank you for being honest, right? It's not very. But everyone's like, oh, I feel so Zen. I like when I hear people say I feel so Zen, I usually want to smack them. Right? I don't, because I don't do that stuff anymore. But if I was 18, that's what I would have done, right? Zen is an experience of the present moment. And in life, the present moment can be really peaceful and beautiful, but it can also be painful and miserable. So being with pain, being with misery, being with suffering, that is an experience. That is Zen. For me, as a Zen practitioner, that's always been what I've studied, always been what I've practiced, always been what you can't even learn it, but it's what I've attempted to learn. It's to go beyond this idea of wanting peace. I know that sounds a little crazy here, but work with me for a minute. Because we strive and we crave everything. When we hear peace, what does that typically mean to people? You want things to be what?
The way you want it.
The way you want it. And how well has that worked out for you?
Not so well.
Not so well. That's why we're here Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, right? So Zen is experiencing life as it arises. And as you go through your life, you're going to have beautiful, wonderful, happy moments, and you're going to have painful, sad, depressing moments. Experiencing them for what they are, that is Zen. And understanding impermanence is super important with Buddhist teachings when we apply Zen practice. Because when we're going through life and we experience miserable, painful, depressing moments, which we will every day of our lives, know that they are impermanent and they will change. Maybe things will get better. Maybe things will get worse. But either way, they're going to change. So that thing that you think is so miserable and just painful in your life right now, maybe a month from now, maybe 3 months from now, maybe 6 months from now, what you're actually experiencing right now is better than it will be 6 months from now. You don't know. But we want everything to be so different from how it is. Again, no one else to be. This moment, experience this moment, life as it is. Beyond judgment, beyond critique, beyond labels, experience. Zen is an experience. I don't even like to say anymore that it translates to meditation, but in Western culture, when we say meditation, we're just confusing it because people still tend to think that meditation is like you're going to go to your happy place. No, make every place your happy place or unhappy place. But whatever you make your place doesn't change what it is. Or whatever you describe your place, I should say, doesn't change what it is. Zen is an experience. Yeah. What else? We'll do one more before we close.
I heard about this this term spiritual materialism in the concept, or in thinking about how like there are like physical objects that you can have, or like physical changes you can make, like monks shave their heads to help you like focus on the practice or remind you of the practice. But then that can also feed into the ego if you like cover yourself in beads and you're like, look at how spiritual I am.
Yeah.
So I was hoping you could speak on if you have any personal experience with that, or if there's any thoughts on that.
Yeah, a life's worth, but I'll try to sum it up in 2 minutes. Did you read Chogyam Trungpa? No. So my recommendation would be to read Chogyam Trungpa's book, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. It's a whole book on that, right? To define it a little bit, and you kind of talked about that, well, I'll say this first before I forget. My master always said, you can shave your head and put on a robe. That doesn't make you a monk or a nun, right? What makes you a monastic, a monk, or nun is what's in your heart and in your mind. So, welcome to Western culture with Buddhism. Welcome to 2024. And spiritual materialism, I see both ways, right? I'm trying to really sum this up because I could discourse on this for like 5 hours, truly. Somebody asked years ago, and I think this was one great example, and then I'll maybe flip to the other side. We had a monk years ago give a talk, and somebody asked him, they said, we go to a Zen center, or we went to a Zen center, and they noticed that they had a rock on their shrine. Many Zen centers don't have a statue, they'll just have a rock. And, or some, I should say. And so they asked him, Master Huiguang, what's the deal with the rock? And he laughs, as he always does, and he said, if you understand that there's no difference between the rock and the Buddha statue, then you just need a rock. But if you're not there yet, and you still see a difference between the Buddha statue and the rock, then you need the Buddha statue to remind yourself and to learn that there's no difference between the Buddha statue and the rock. And I thought that was such a perfect, I've shared that 1,000 times since I've heard that. So I know for me, when I first started this practice, right, learned about it in college 29 years ago, started going to the temple in 2003, so 21 years ago. Really, my practice, everyday, disciplined, dedicated Buddhist practice started 21 years ago. And made, lots of wrong choices over the last 21 years. But I'm very stubborn. We call that diligence in Buddhism, so it's great. They take the word stubborn and they call it diligent, and it sounds like a beautiful practice. When I first started going to the temple, I remember one of the first things I got were mala beads. Because when I would get really angry, I'd make a fist. And like I said, I grew up fighting, punching people, punching walls, hitting things. And so when I would get really angry, I would make a fist. And so I got a mala bead and I wrapped it around my hand. So when I made that fist, I would grab the mala bead, and it would immediately anchor me to come back to my breath, right? Now, I wasn't thinking I was more spiritual because I had a mala bead on. It was actually keeping me calm and helping me not want to punch people. So that was really beautiful practice. Now, the flip side is you could buy all the spiritual clothes and statues and mala beads. That doesn't make you a practitioner. That's just stuff. And I think it's important to understand that this kind of idea of spiritual materialism, welcome to America. Americans like stuff. And so I think it's important to understand, how do you use this stuff? It's, the idea of shaving the head, do you know where that tradition comes from? So the Buddha, and I'll close with this thought, the Buddha was a prince, as by now I'm sure you know, right? Did you know that? Yeah. So he was a prince, and one of the signs of being a prince was beautiful long hair. So when he left home and he renounced at 29 the life of a prince, one of the things he did was he took his long, beautiful hair, he cut it off to show that he was renouncing his attachment to this life as a prince, and he began to shave his head to show that he was no longer attached to worldly possessions, and he had about 7 items. a robe, a bowl, a blade to shave his head, a rock to sharpen the blade. They had a strainer so they could get water, sift out water stuff without killing bugs. He lived with 7 items. I mean, I got 7 items in my pocket right now. So I think you have to be really careful on just because you have mala beads and wear some shirt from India, that doesn't make you Buddhist. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa. Wonderful book. And so the tradition, back to the shaving head, the tradition carried on that in many Buddhist traditions, monks and nuns shave the head. Not all. Just depends on which culture and which practice you're in. But again, I still default back to, what's in your heart, what's in your mind. That's what matters, and how you use this stuff. All right, so we'll close with that. We'll join palms. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. All right, a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on, different Buddhist traditions being shared by different folks. Every Thursday, 4:30, we have a food redistribution program. I still think it's one of the best things around here. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, peanut butter and jelly, and we feed people who sleep on a sidewalk. So anytime you think your life sucks, go feed people who sleep on a sidewalk, and it tends to put things into perspective. However, this Thursday we'll have our 15th annual Thanksgiving Day food redistribution program. So it'll be basically the same thing, but a lot larger. So we'll meet here at 10 o'clock. We'll prepare food. We also have tons of socks that have been coming in. Thanks to everybody who's been buying those, sending them in. Socks, some ponchos, some blankets, feminine hygiene products. So, and we'll prepare everything Thursday from 10 to 11:30, and then we'll head downtown from 11:30. You'll be back by about 1. So if anyone who wants to come on Thursday, you're welcome. Other than that, thanks for being here. Good luck.